Go! Welcome, Paddy, to the Where the Climate Things Are podcast. How are you? Happy
I'm
Friday.
good. I'm good here on a Friday afternoon in a remarkably sunny San Francisco, in Richmond, San Francisco. We've had some foggy
Kind
days
of
the last
like
couple
kind of like our event on Sunday, although
kind of,
it
but
was
then
like sunny and then it got
there was a
cloudy.
wall of fog just looming over the
Yeah.
ocean beach, ready to
Yeah.
just engulf us. But
Yeah.
that didn't seem to hold people back, which was great.
No, we still got 75 people that came, which was really
We
amazing.
critically told them to layer the day before with a last minute message, realizing a lot of people come to San Francisco don't realize that you should always bring a puffy jacket, regardless of
Always.
the year.
ABP, always bring puffy, but also specifically in San Francisco. Like I say that's my like one of my life mantras, but I actually really mean it about San Francisco. You and I both have had a very busy, packed week. Thank you for making the time on Friday. You've also had like many meetings today already, so I know your day is packed, but I really appreciate it. This was SF Climate Week, and you participated probably more than you even thought you would ever participate in Climate Week. This is the thing that happens, Patty, is like I feel like you do one thing and share your gifts and knowledge and charisma with the world, and then people are like, Patty, can we get you on this other event? Like, can you help out on this other thing? So
Yeah,
that's definitely what happened this week, but we'll get into all of that. um the event on Sunday, Climate Strides, I'm very, very grateful to have had you as a co-host and a event organizer. You did so much around getting sponsors on board. You brought Best Day Brewing on board, who provided really delicious post walk beverages, but also critical in kind of giving us a little more insight around like the park and the space and where we held the event. So I mean, just in general, curious how you felt like it went and what any takeaways were from Sunday's Climate Strides.
one of my favorite things is, and this goes back to I think my November project days, is showing people San Francisco and showing people the little gems of locations we have around the city. So when you reached out to me about hosting this, I of course had to jump right at it. I kind of seen what you were doing in New York, and I was kind of super excited that you wanted to bring that to San Francisco. And like I'd never actually engaged. I'd been at a Patagonia POW event a year ago at SF Climate Week, but this is the first time I kind of really looked
Cool.
into other things that were going on. So it was cool to kind of get involved in that in a kind of a bigger level. Um, I don't know, the event on Sunday, you combine beautiful spaces, uh, really interactive community people, and storytelling, and the outdoors. It's just kind of that combination, that confluence is quite powerful. And I think people really appreciate it afterwards. Like so many people said to us, we love this fresh view of storytelling as opposed to sitting in front of a panel. I know you have your term, break the panel. Is that it? Break the panel?
Break the panel. That's what we've
Yeah.
called it. Yeah.
Yeah, we broke
Yeah.
it.
We broke it open.
Yeah,
We broke it.
people really loved it, and then just also the speakers we got to bring in there. I was familiar with two of them before, but everyone else was kind of new to me, so it was kind of cool just to hear new stories, new people who are kind of having action across a whole array of angles in a climate advocacy.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So we would do this like run one way. Wait, you know what? I'm going to pause. I didn't even ask you to introduce yourself. This is so funny. This is so funny. I've never done this with anyone because you to me are so familiar. So let's do this. Who are you? Introduce yourself, please, to the audience who does
That's
not know you,
hilarious.
maybe. And then we will keep going. That's so
Okay,
funny. Please. Please introduce yourself, Patty. I'm going to keep it in that order too. That's pretty
okay.
funny.
Uh, my name is Paddy O'Leary. I'm an Irishman living in San Francisco since 2013. Career wise, I'm a scientist. I've worked in cancer biology and infectious disease research for the last many years 15, 16 years. I'm also a professional trail runner with the North Face and Hydropack and Precision. I've kind of moved over to San Francisco and I got involved in trail running and it just blew up from there. Got to travel the world racing in the mountains. I'm a storyteller and filmmaker. I've worked on a couple of films over the years, mainly in running and kind of community elevation space. And also, there was what else? What else is on my list of many hats?
Do you say,
Community
yeah,
organizer. I just
yeah,
really enjoy organizing
leader?
communities. We met through November Project, a community fitness group that's kind of all over the US and beyond. I was heavily involved in that, and I just kind of really enjoy bringing people together, regardless if it's about fitness, about science, about climate change.
Yeah. So this is okay. So this is why I obviously was like, "Hey, Patty, I need your help on this event. This is like these are the many reasons why in your personal and background and experience and interest areas, this is why it was such a good fit to work together on this." So now to bring everyone up to speed on what you do in your background, um, it was just such a natural fit. And you're a Protect Our Winners athlete on the Athlete Alliance, which is I'm on the Creative Alliance, very newly so. I feel like you were actually one of the people that were like, you should just join
Yeah.
the Creative Alliance or something. Like you were very
Yeah.
like I chatted with Aaron Sprague a little bit, but that was very instrumental. Anyways, they supported the event, and the idea of the event was also we did this in Central Park too, which actually the walking component only came into play a few weeks before the Central Park event. Like we had a speaker, I think I was sharing, we had a speaker who said like, "Hey, I want to take part in this run group, but I don't run. Like, could I come?" And I'm so happy that he said that because we ended up having, I don't know, how many people do you think ran in the group with you versus walked? Because I had a big
15
group.
to 20. And it varied
Yeah.
throughout it. Some people started running and then they
Yeah.
shifted to walking because I think they realized, because we were having the discussions that people had to have from
Yeah.
speaker to speaker,
Right,
which
right,
easy to
right,
do, have a
right.
discussion when you're not panting.
No,
So
exactly.
I think it was transformative bringing in the walking aspect, because also like running can be intimidating for a lot of
Totally.
people as well,
Totally.
especially when you're combining running with actually having a full on discussion about serious topics with someone as well. I
Yeah.
think kind of adding the walking component, I think it kind of transformed the idea of the event. Um,
Yeah.
it makes me think back to kind of like November Project, how we designed our workouts way back in the day, was to try to
Yeah.
include people of all different fitnesses so they can still do it together.
Right.
I think
The
it gave me a lot of
circuit.
vibes of that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, and I think the what you're referring to with the prompts. So we had Britt Blitzer, who's been on the podcast before for the Climate Strides event in New York City. She did an amazing job of facilitating. She's phenomenal, and she gave folks prompts
Hmm.
throughout. So this was the thing that was interesting was we had six speakers, which we'll go through a little bit more about in a second, and yes, breaking the panel open so that we're not like sitting in a room listening to people up front and sitting in the audience. We wanted to really make sure we were having a dialogue around this. But the wild thing was that same with Central Park, the people that showed up, all of them could have been speakers. Like I was looking at the bios of people as they registered because you had to ask certain questions to be a part of Climate Week. You had to have like, what's your title, what's your organization. I mean, we were getting like CEOs and found a lot of founders, a lot of folks that like really know what they're talking about and work deeply in climate. And so it was very cool to be able to. What we did was on both events, we had Britt kind of prompt the audience with, okay, you just heard from these two speakers. This speaker talking about this personal thing. Talk a little bit with a person you've never met in the crowd. Go find someone you've never met, meet them, and learn more about like their connection to nature or their aha moment on climate. And I think that really helped to not only ground the event in like it's I don't know, I feel like it's so easy to check out in those things, right? To be like, okay, I'm just kind of following the leader or whatever. This was similar to how November Project used to do. Like, remember, it was like find a partner and do burpees or whatever. It was sort of this like interactive
Big time.
nature, much less intimate. I mean, when have I
Like,
done a burpee in the
it makes
last 10
it,
years? But
it kind of makes me
much
think
less
back to like
intimidating.
my whole career has been in academia and the amount of presentations I've sat through, and like the
Yeah.
questions at the end.
Yeah.
It's the principal investigators, the group leaders who ask the questions, and like the whole array of people. It can be kind of intimidating to ask the
Totally.
question, but
Yeah.
kind of forcing people to ask questions and answer questions, but in a very informal way, is kind of powerful.
Yeah.
It was really fun to have those interactions with people and like hear other people's stories in a very kind of informal and kind of quieter and not in front of the whole group setting. And a lot of
Yes.
people were able to open up a lot more, which was
Yeah.
super cool.
Totally.
Like I think
And the other thing,
my first discussion was actually because I was kind of shooing everyone from behind the running group and
right? You were
herding,
the back. Yeah.
bringing back to my dairy farming days of like herding
Yeah.
cows and herding sheep.
Yeah.
And I was
Exactly.
in the back, and I was with Marnie Kennard, who's the photographer who had great
Yes.
photos from the
Yeah.
day,
Great photos.
and we were kind of talking about our own kind of experiences, kind of I don't know, being aware of nature. And it was around talking about our aha moment, but we kind of started talking about just our own experiences when we actually started like immersing yourself in nature for the first time. And actually, for both of us, it was like here in San Francisco. It
Oh,
was like, it's funny,
cool.
we both moved to these big urban spaces. That's where we kind of discovered wild
Yeah.
spaces in the middle of the city, because she started getting into
Because,
like running in a park and experiencing that, because
yeah.
I can't remember what city she grew up in, but she grew up in a very much suburban place.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. We both kind of
That's
really
cool.
became aware of our environment in one of the densest metropolitan places in the US, which is cool. Even though I grew up in Ireland, and like
I
obviously I
know.
was
I was going to
exposed
say,
to nature my whole childhood, but I only started really appreciating it here. I think maybe
that's
it's something
so
with age
interesting.
where I'm starting to be more
Yeah.
aware of things around me, or maybe I'm slowing down a little bit and actually listen. Like during one of the talks, like a hawk started singing above us when we were above it,
Yeah.
where Emily and Chance were speaking, which I
Yes,
thought
I
was pretty
remember
cool.
that.
Yeah,
That was really cool. Yeah. And I think it's awesome to, like, I feel like on some panels, you have people like wait. Like this happened the other night at the Patagonia store, which also I have to mention, you hopped on a panel for POW at the Patagonia store a couple days later. We'll get to that. And but did you realize like there were folks that kind of like the panel ends and then people kind of go up and maybe wait to talk to you as a panelist or the moderator or whatever. And this was so I love that there was just the ability for people to like if they heard Emily speak to be like, I want to go, even if they weren't necessarily directly talking to her right away, like you can still kind of walk with the speakers, right? There was sort of this like non-hierarchical flow to it, which I really liked. And I didn't realize that was happening till we actually had, speaking of running and walking switch off in Central Park, we had the two speakers that went like the second, it was kind of the second time or whatever. One of them, they ended up having a connection point. And so the like Marianne, who was speaking about her work at the UN and then also on Billy and Oyster Project, and Adam Matt, who I mentioned before, like both had their own aha moment of like, we know the same people. So she actually ducked out of the running group and walked with him for the second leg only, just to have one conversation with him. And then after that, she switched back to running. So it was sort of a nice, like, you kind of networking. I don't like that word necessarily, but you do give moments for connection points, like very fluid in a way that like in a panel room, like you're kind of, I don't know, it's a little more
a couple
hierarchical
of
or something.
kind of thoughts I noticed from the weekend is that this actually happened at the Pow store as well. Like of the 70, because we kind of grew throughout it. I think
Yeah,
we
that's
started with
right.
about 40 speakers, but I think some people had showed our 40 attendees. But by
Yeah.
the end, we had like 70. People were just randomly
Yeah.
stopping because
Yeah.
we were
People joined.
starting and finishing on JFK, which is a pedestrianized street through the park,
Right.
and like we'd random people pulling up on their bikes and just listening into a
Yeah.
story, which I
Yeah.
thought was super cool. But then afterwards, when we were enjoying some best days, like 50 of the 70 people stayed there for like an extra 45 minutes in the fog, in the cold, which I
Yeah.
thought was super cool. But then also there
Yeah.
kind of these growth of connections. I think her name was it Sarah from New York, the filmmaker from New York. Was her name Sarah?
There was someone, I think they're from New York, named Sarah, but I don't know if
Yeah.
she's a
So
filmmaker.
I was
Anyways.
talking to her
Oh, yeah, yeah,
beforehand,
maybe
and I was
because she
like,
was, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, she works in filmmaking and storytelling, and kind of around climate. I think she might work in food tech, and I was like, oh, well, you need to talk to Bryn. She's active in storytelling and facilitating in New York. You should talk to her.
Yeah.
But she did, and I was like, oh, but you should also talk to Chance. He's done
Yeah.
filmmaking in regenerative agriculture. So just seeing those different connections happen, they wouldn't have happened without this event. So they wouldn't have happened without what you created. So
Oh,
it's kind of
thank
cool
you.
to see that
Yeah.
that kind of proliferate from here.
Totally. That's a really good. I love that. And I think both of us are very similar in that we love connecting people. Like what you did was like you made that happen, right? You're like, you're drawing the connections between different themes or different people's passions. And I think that's why like I least love this event format is I'm like in New York it was very much a lot of my good friends came, right? A lot of my friends came out for the first one because it was like they were supporting it, very sweet. But then I was kind of like, wait, this is so cool because this person from this my grad school program can meet this other person that they've never met. And I love them both, but I want them to meet, so it's kind of a fun moment for that. But I think the other thing we've been teasing at is that you sat on you were going to attend a panel at the Patagonia store with Protect Our Winners was putting on. I was supposed to moderate, and I did moderate, which was very cool. We had a panelist who unfortunately got very sick and was unable to attend. And so I'm laughing because the message I got on email was, do you think Paddy would want to speak? And this was Caroline from POW, who had actually attended our Sunday event. And she said, do you think Paddy would be interested? And I just wrote in all caps, he would love this. Like, yes, definitely. I knew that you were someone who could jump in so fast, which you did, and just know exactly, what you were going to share and what you wanted to say and everything. So, talk a little bit about that experience. Like, how was it for you, kind of going from what you were thinking you were going to go be in the audience at a more traditional style panel, and then you're sitting in the front of the room?
Getting a text message at like 4:30 before a 7 o'clock event that you're going to have to speak about climate action alongside some very talented climate advocates and athletes and storytellers. It's definitely intimidating, to be honest. I think that's something, because I think I deal with, and I think many of us deal with, kind of imposter syndrome a little bit, about, we're like, oh, why would I be? Should I be the person that people should listen to?
100%.
Kind of this community is very supportive, and they actually are very supportive of elevating the story you have, which was really cool. So yourself and Caroline and the other speakers were great to kind of help me, nudge me into that. It was really fun getting up there to speak, but also just to hear the other stories that people had to share, and the really dynamic discussion at the end, and questions and answers. People with some really insightful questions, and people, mainly Ian, with really insightful answers.
Cool. Exactly.
But then I also loved getting to share, so you guys gave me the platform to share one of the films we made about the city, the green spaces of San Francisco, that we made 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I guess, Urban Oasis. I got to share that short film, which is pretty emotional and really, really fun for me.
Yeah, and we'll link to that too, so people can go find it. I'm doing the funniest order of this podcast because now I want to dive into like your life and how you made the film and all this stuff. But just to wrap on that part, the panel had Christopher Blevins, Ian Bolliger, and yourself as the panelists. Ian is a climate scientist, risk analysis specialist, PhD, and Christopher is casually an Olympian and mountain bike world champion, but made a really powerful film. Or what would you call that piece? It was sort of an illustrated spoken word
poet, like video. It was an illustrative, poetic, contemplative about climate change piece. It kind of left us all, you might leave it kind of even thinking more, like, I don't know, it was just a beautiful piece. It was emotional. It was kind of true and real, and surreal as well. It was just a beautiful piece. Is that publicly available yet, I wonder?
It is. Yeah. And I will definitely link to that too, because folks need to go watch that. Yeah. Folks, please go watch both Urban Oasis and How to Recall, which is Christopher's film. Really made me feel, and even on the panel, I think I was like, because I had to take the mic right after that showed, and I wanted to just make sure we had a moment to let it sink in over people, because it's so
you can
it's a lot.
You can feel the electricity in the room afterwards.
Definitely.
People saw that. I think that piece, I think we can all relate to kind of his words throughout that, because he talked a bit about all of our challenges with kind of our own impact on the climate, but also on a realization that that we can kind of be part of the solution. It was really powerful. I'm excited to go back and listen to it again and again and again and again.
Same.
Now, I really admire people who are like wordsmiths like him as well. It was just beautifully written and beautifully recited, and then the visuals and the art. I guess it wasn't cartoon, but what word would describe the visuals of that?
Illustrations. I don't know. It was sort of a moving picture. It was so good. Yeah, it was really good. Just go watch it. Trust us. Yeah. But the thing too that I appreciate, and actually we have a lot of friends like this, yourself included, like the pro athlete who also has, he's a spoken word poet, he's a musician, like he has these passions that are outlets for creativity that maybe he's not, he's such a dedicated, passionate, and motivated and talented athlete, and yet you have like some, I just love seeing that people are like, oh, and I'm also and I also did this spoken word poetry, and I did this poem, or I did this presentation. And, I'm thinking of like, of course he's coming to mind, but Drew Holman, who we know and love dearly, both of us, like he is someone, yourself, like there are folks that are pro athletes that have these full lives outside of work or full-time jobs, and have a lot going on. And I think it's it's very, very cool and impressive when an athlete can get to the point where they're just
Mhm.
focusing on their craft and they're just
Yeah.
racing, and that's so great. And I think it's very cool to see when athletes have, these sort of multifaceted lives and different talents and passions. So that was pretty cool to see.
On that, in like 2019, I took leave from work for like 3 months to
Oh,
travel and
that's
race
right.
just to see if I
Yeah, that's right.
how I would vibe with like doing it full time.
Yeah.
And it was a realization for me that I didn't want to do it full time. That like I appreciate people who do,
Interesting.
and they're
Yeah.
able to perform a lot better because they're focusing on it fully. But
Yeah.
I needed balance between. I needed something to use my mind, use my soul, use my legs, for a whole
Yeah.
variety of different things. I kind of
Yeah.
I kind of liked like being involved in many different things. I kind of really enjoyed that. It keeps burning my fire more than just focusing in on one pure thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a PhD. You grew up on a dairy farm. This is like a great time to transition more into you. And again, I'm doing this lovely out of order process because it's actually really fun, because I'm usually in this very like specific pre-baked order of podcast interviews. So, but tell me about, I mean, it's not surprising to me that you did that stint in 2019 and you came out of it and you were like, that's not for me. Because knowing you as I do, like you have so many things that you're interested in, so many passions. What was, yeah, like tell me a little bit more about the growing up in Ireland, growing up in a big family,
Mhm.
maybe not feeling the connection to nature, quote unquote, that you said until that you moved to the city that you were feeling. But how did that, you played lacrosse, like tell us about growing up. Like
So,
who are you?
so in the beginning, uh, no, I
Yeah,
grew up in
exactly.
southeast Ireland in a place called Wexford, about 2 hours south of Dublin. Grew up on a dairy farm. My dad and now my older brother were farmers at home. Big size farm for Ireland, but very small for here. Like we've like a small organic farm here. Basically, we've 120 dairy cows. We had a couple of horses. We had sheep for a while, a couple of pigs, a couple of chickens, a load of vegetables for ourselves. I grew up the youngest of five, so the least Irish names of the boys so I'm Patrick O'Leary, and it's like, oh my god, you're Paddy O'Leary, it's so Irish. But my eldest brother is Seamus, and my other brother's Eamon. So like that kind of elevates the Irishness sounding of those names. My sister Mary and my sister Anne. Um, yeah, so grew up youngest of five on the farm in Ireland. Just every summer was spent working out on the farm. Every evening was spent working on the farm. My older siblings would say that I worked much less than any of them because I was the spoiled brat of a kid. So that I got married last year, and that came up as part of the discussions around that a lot.
Nice.
All my
Yeah.
American friends getting the full story about how lazy I was as a kid, which I disagree with. Um, my parents are very involved in kind of in community development and in sport. My mom was a school teacher, so they were all very passionate about kind of building communities and getting people involved in different events. My dad was a big running and sport organizer. My mom was really big at getting us and the rest of the kids in the community involved in different kind of, I guess, mentally challenging activities like table quizzes and projects and all these different types of things. Um, so they kind of really planted the community development spark in my mind at an early age, and then something that's always been at the center of things I've done throughout my career and throughout my life. I went to college in Dublin, University College Dublin. I did a degree in pharmacology. Originally, I wanted to do a degree in farming, and I just or not farming, veterinary medicine, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like this that and medicine and actuary were like the three hardest subjects to get into college for in Ireland because it's like a ranked system, and I missed out on like the 50 veterinary spots in the country by like 10 spots. So I didn't get into that, so I went and did science instead, but fell in love with science. Went
Yeah.
into pharmacology and biochemistry, but then got heavily distracted by sport in college. I had played Gaelic football and hurling as a kid, did a bit of horse riding as a kid, but then took up lacrosse in college, and we were the first club to start playing lacrosse in Ireland in like over 100 years. So I got to play in the Irish team, got to play in, I established the first ever Irish lacrosse league as we grew to like 5 or 6 teams by the time I retired from that. Managed touring teams traveling around Europe because we had to travel out of the country to get games.
Yeah, of course, right.
Played in several world championships. Got to play against the Iroquois Nationals, the creators of the game. They had so many people have their own nation at the world championships. So got to play against them, and still probably my favorite sporting memory of my life was in 2011 World Indoor Lacrosse Championships in Prague, where I lined up against the Iroquois Nationals, and then we got
Wow.
absolutely whooped by them because they're so.
Destroyed.
But it was really cool. I just get shivers when I
Wow.
thinking about that and
Yeah.
their national anthem. It was really cool. But then, yeah, and then I moved over to. I went and decided to stay on and do grad school. I did a cancer biology PhD at University College Dublin, and stayed active in sport and community throughout that. But then in 2013, I was walking down the corridor in my institute, the Comedy
Yeah.
Institute, and I saw a poster on the wall of the Golden Gate Bridge, and this postdocs in mechanism of resistance for cancer, postdoc available, San Francisco. Contact this guy. And I knocked on my boss's door and I said, "Hey, do you know who this fella is? Martin McMahon. Is he any good? Should I apply for this job?" Because I was wanting to leave, or I was wanting to do something different. I'd been in Dublin for 8 years, and I felt the draw to America because I played lacrosse and I had a lot of friends who were involved in the lacrosse community
Mm.
over here, and I traveled here a lot. And ends up my boss had been emailing with that guy the day before about something different. And he was like, "You should talk to him. I think it'd be great for you." Ended up getting that job, moved over here to work for a Scottish man, Martin McMahon, at University of California, San Francisco. Postdoc with him for 2 years, moved to a different group, stayed at UCSF, and then I spent from 2013 to 2024 at UCSF as a postdoc and senior scientist working in first cancer biology, and then driven by the pandemic, started working in infectious disease, developing novel antivirals for this pandemic and for future pandemics. So yeah.
And in all of that too, you moved to the US and then got very involved in what we were
Yeah,
talking about,
yeah.
November Project,
Yeah, when I moved
running,
here in
and then
2013,
also in there somewhere became a pro runner for the North Face.
that
So
was that was
those
a
were
fun,
some,
yeah, that's kind of a funny angle because I ran
yeah,
a little bit as a kid, and my dad was
yeah.
big into running. He was a big running organizer, but I was too distracted by team sports and other things. But then I had started. I went and did a couple of like charity 5Ks and 10Ks with my work back in Dublin, and I was like, "Oh, they were fun. This is fun, isn't it? Running, yeah." And
Oh,
then
I'm just winning these.
yeah,
Whoops.
and I was doing pretty well at them. I was in my long lacrosse shorts and like a cotton t-shirt, and
Your
yeah, it wasn't
Courtney
pretty.
DeWalter
Basically,
days.
I was, I
Yeah.
was, I was doing
Yeah.
the long. I was doing basketball shorts before Courtney was, and I was doing the bucket hat before Jim Monty. I
You
was just
heard
a
it here,
full-on
folks.
weird looking running nerd.
Oh, wow. Bucket hat.
But then, yeah, when I moved over here, I ended up hearing about this fitness community, the November Project, and a guy I was actually in an interview for a house I ended up moving into. The guy who was moving out of the house was like, "You
Yeah.
should check out this group. I think you'd really like their vibe." So I went and joined November Project and just fell in love with it. It was how I met people in the city, but it's also how we
Yeah.
got to explore our city. To give people
Mm.
context, November Project is a morning fitness group where people would meet in different parts around, in our case, San Francisco, but it was in New York, it was in DC, it was in Boston, it was all over the world. It was one in Hong Kong, it was one in London, we were all over.
Yeah.
Um, we used to travel and rotate to different parks and stairways in the city and trails in the city. So it was kind of a really great way for me to meet people, a great way for me to realize I really liked running, but critically a great way for me to explore San Francisco and to get to know it like
Yeah.
and get to appreciate all the
Yeah.
little nuggets of trails we have here in the city.
Which are so plentiful. I mean, I did the one in DC. And this is how, yeah, as you said, this is how we met and met a lot of our community. I mean, when people ask how I met like Drew and Sasha, I say like, well, technically technically Sasha and I went to college together, but we didn't really know each other. But like through that community,
That
like
definitely.
there's so many community members I could trace back to, like a lot of the friends that came to the Central Park event, right? Like these are friends from November Project, honestly, but I forget like where, anyways, I always forget kind of the origin story of these. Um but I did the DC one. Beautiful city, also wonderful like monuments and space, like sort of almost like you could revel in like the beauty of some of the sculptures and structures in that city. But there's something about San Francisco where I just can only imagine you guys had no lack of staircases, parks? I mean, like, did you ever run out? I mean, I feel like you guys didn't even like double up on places when
I
you moved
Yeah,
around.
when I stepped down in 2018, our good friend Tony Di Pascali took over as the leader of the group
Yeah, that's
instead of
great.
me, and they
That's
did a
great.
thing for like a year where they tried to not repeat a single hill. And so they
Wow.
had like, I think they ended the list being like 60 or 70 locations, and we barely touched the surface.
Yeah.
This makes me
Oh
think
yeah.
of a friend of mine, Luke Wicker, a British guy who was moving back home to London in 2021, and he wanted to kind of leave his ode to the city, his ode to the trails of San Francisco, and he decided to. So there's a popular kind of style of event called a mountain round in ultra running, where
Mm.
people try to do
Mm-hmm.
every peak in a range in less than a day, less than 24 hours. Started with the Bob Graham round in the Lake District of the UK. We did a film a few years ago about the Wicklow round in Ireland,
Yeah, that's
where
great.
I had to do like 26 peaks in less than a day.
Is it in less than 24 hours? I don't think I knew
It's
that
always
about
a
rounds.
24-hour limit, yeah, generally for these
Oh,
rounds.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah,
Maybe I knew that at some point. Anyways,
yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah.
Luke decided to do all of the hills of San Francisco in 24
Oh,
hours. And
okay.
ends up there was
Wow.
77, but two of them were on private land, so he cut it to 75. So he did 75 peaks. He nailed it. Was going to be around 100 kilometers or so. About 25% of it would have been on trail, but it was 100
Oh,
kilometers, but it was also like 7 or 8,000 feet of climbing in a city, which is wild.
yeah.
So he ended up doing that in 2021. We went and crewed him and paced him for bits of it. He
Wow.
did it in like 11 hours, so set the first ever FKT of the San Francisco round. Since then, there was a group of friends of ours from the San Francisco Running Company community did it a few weeks ago. There was like
Did
six.
they?
They started at 9 a.m. on a Friday, 9 p.m. on a Friday night, which was kind of wild. Like,
No,
this
they
is a way of
went
exploring a city and
overnight.
seeing it in the daylight.
Yeah.
That was the same night a storm hit San Francisco and a tornado hit San Francisco that night when they were out on that run. Yeah,
Did,
they were
did
like
they do it? Did they
they did it. Yeah, they
finish?
finished it, and they got. It was
Oh,
the coldest they've ever been, and the wettest they've
they
ever
just
been.
wanted to emulate the Wicklow round. Like they just wanted
Exactly,
to make their
exactly.
weather as hard as possible to
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
that's wild.
But
Okay.
that's but kind of through exploring that with him, and kind of that was. And the Best of Chronicle did a podcast with him. They wrote a story about him,
So
and like he
cool.
kind of inspired people to appreciate every corner of this city because it also brought us down
Yeah.
to newer locations of the city, like Bayview District down near Candlestick Stadium in the southeast, other parts of the
Yeah,
southwest,
and
parts of the south of the
corners
city.
of
People don't really
yeah.
appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so
it's a
cool.
small
Didn't
city, but there's so
Ricky
much going on.
Gates who
Oh,
did
then
Ricky Gates
we
run
forgot
every
about that.
road?
And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
our
Shout out
friend
Ricky.
Ricky Gates did two ridiculous human feats of endurance and storytelling. Um, both revolve loosely around San Francisco. He lived here many years ago. His first one, he ran from the East Coast to San Francisco, but tried to do it on doing predominantly trails, and also tried to do it on something like $100 a week or something like that. So he ended up like sleeping under a load of bridges. If someone would offer him a place to stay, he would stay with them. If they'd offer food, he would take it from the. He was recording the stories and interactions he had with people across the country,
Yeah.
and he ended up making a feature length film out of it called Trans Americana, and just because his inspiration behind it was right after Trump got elected in 2016, 2017. He was like, he didn't realize there was such divisiveness. He's traveled all over the world, but he realized that he didn't realize there was this much divisiveness here in the country. But he also realized he didn't really know a lot of people who had different points of view to him. So that inspired him to do that run, and he ran through the south and ran through the center of the country and ran over the mountain west and finished here in San
So
Francisco and
cool.
just speaking to people and sharing stories with people. So it's a beautiful film that I recommend people checking out.
Yeah.
But then when he got to San Francisco, he was like, "Wow, so I've traveled all over the world, I've traveled all over the country by foot, but I lived in San Francisco for years and I feel I don't know San Francisco." So he decided to do every single street in the city, just
That's
1,200
right.
miles of street, and he did it over like a 40-day
1200?
period. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And he also
Ricky.
did it like, and I don't know if this was wise, but he did it right around the time of the campfire. And so this terrible fire in Northern
Yeah.
California was smoky for 2 weeks or so, and that actually crossed over when he did it. So it was kind of a wild time in San Francisco in the Bay. But during that, he interviewed a lot of people he met on the street, and he shared a lot of stories on the street. And that's a beautiful short film, about 20 minutes on YouTube, every single street. But that's inspired people in their own cities to do it. So if you look up the
Yeah.
hashtag every single street, you'll see a lot
Oh,
of people's
interesting.
own efforts at doing it in their own city, with their town,
So
with their
cool.
village. And
Yeah.
people have been doing all over the world inspired by his concept and idea.
Ricky. I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, I don't think I knew that. That's great. Okay, well, I also want to ask you about your own, you already hinted at this a little bit, but the love letter to San Francisco you made. And I promise I'm going to bring this back to climate again, doing this in a funny order, but because I do want to ask you a little bit more about your like awakening on climate activism, etc. But you created this film with our buddies at Dooster, Ryan and Dylan, called Urban Oasis, and it is stunning. It's also one of those films similar to Christopher's that we watched that was very like, woo, it hits you, and it's very emotional, but it's simple. Like there's no dialogue, right? There's no
Yeah. None
words in the film.
whatsoever.
Can you tell us more about how that came about, and also, of course, like the making of it? There's a lot of like friend celebrity cameos in the film. I enjoyed that, but how, like, what was the reaction to that? What was the response? Because you guys won awards, you traveled toward that thing. Yeah, what was that like for you, bringing
Yeah.
that to the world?
So this film was something Ryan had been Ryan Scurra, one half of Dooster Film. We all met him and his business partner Dylan Lads through November Project, and me and Ryan ran up so many trails and hills in San Francisco on Friday mornings with November Project, or just on our own
Yeah.
runs, and like we are both obsessed with the trails and the green spaces of our city, and we would always be sharing different routes and be like, oh, did you see this trail, did you see this trail? And like this kind of goes back to like me finding myself and my love of nature in San Francisco, because when I
Mm-hmm.
noticed like little things about like flowers like erupting out of the sidewalk, or along the median of Geary, a street just half a block south of me here, you can just see right now it's just radiant with California poppies.
Mm.
And I just love
Mm.
that ability of nature to survive in the middle of this urban space.
Yeah.
And that was something Ryan was really passionate about as well. And he had this vision of an idea of where he wanted to show the contrasting spaces that you can find from like the urban jungle, the concrete jungle with no green space, through to these wilderness spaces almost in the middle of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And just the contrast between two things that are like right on top of each other. Just to try to get people to appreciate that like their own city has wildness in the middle of it. And maybe if we can appreciate more, people can appreciate more that there's wildness in their city, they can grow to love it, and they grow
Mm-hmm.
to appreciate it, to elevate it, to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of the vision there. Um,
Was that
so
all? Were all of those green spaces in San
every
Francisco? Like they
single
were not
shot
in
in that
Marin
city,
or
in that
anything like
film, was
not in East
between the
Bay.
7 miles by 7 miles of San Francisco.
Okay, because there are
Yeah,
some. I mean, folks will see it when they watch it, but there are some like. I mean, it looks like you're in the middle of nowhere forest. So that
yeah,
was pretty impressive.
yeah. So one part of that, which I loved, so I was involved as a producer, but we had very good cinematographers, and Ryan's brother Ian came over, and then Tony
Oh, cool.
DiPascali, who lives
Yeah.
a block and a half over here from me. They're
Yeah.
a very talented filmmaker. Um, so my role throughout the week was kind of like bring the talent in and kind of coordinate and help with the shot selection, things like that. But I feel my main role was like, guys, look at that piece of nature over there. Dylan, get your microphone over there. We need to get capture that sound. Like I was
Yeah.
like, we're making this a nature documentary, and then we had
Yeah.
walk.
It was.
We had the cutest little bird who was like shaking and
Oh,
like
yeah.
dropping this like slow
I
motion
remember that.
water off itself. We had a coyote sneaked up on us. I was like, hey, what are you lads up to? There was some really cool
So
moments there that we
cool.
were capturing, showing the film. But yeah, everything was in the 7x7, and we also later on we actually a couple of fun collaborations kind of came from that. We did a little behind the scenes video that we kind of teased the film's release with kind of interviews with different, like we had 12 people that we featured in the film. We had interviews with them about their love of the green space in the city. We also, our list of like our friends and kind of community members who were part of the film, we wanted to reflect the kind of the cultural diversity of our city as well. And we think we tried our best to kind of do that as well, to kind of use this as not also as a way of getting people to love their city and the nature in the city and appreciate that, but also appreciate that everyone in this sport is not just male and white and from wealthy backgrounds as well. We kind of really expand that and get people to realize that
Yeah.
there's a lot of runners in this city and they're from all different backgrounds and walks of life. Um, one
And
little
especially in
collabor-
San Francisco.
Yeah,
Like I think that's a real
yeah.
unique thing. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with you, but I do think there's other cities that have
It's not.
more homogenous
Yeah, yeah,
communities, but the San Francisco community is incredibly rich and varied from a variety of different, and came to running in different ways and
yeah.
through different methods, which is cool. Yeah.
Two things that kind of came from that film. The first, our film launch, we had a screening at Sports Basement, a store north of here that has a big public space, and we like 200 people came out to it. But for that launch, we wanted to create kind of a panel discussion. We actually had put together and like hosted a really interesting panel discussion, that had a member from the Golden Gate National Rec Area Parks Conservancy, where Lewis Reyes, who spoke on
Yeah.
Sunday. So
Yeah.
one of the staff from there came to participate in our panel. We had Bob Seigel, who was the founder of the Crosstown Trail and one of the founders of the Bay Area Ridge Trail,
Yeah.
which the Crosstown
Right.
Trail is an urban trail through San Francisco that kind of goes through a lot of lesser known parts of the city. But he was very involved in like conservation of these public spaces in San Francisco back in the 70s and 80s. So it's really good to have him. And then we had another person from SF Urban Riders, which is a mountain biking coalition that's doing a lot of trail building in the parks in the city, and like mountain bike trails in the middle of San Francisco, which is super cool. But I love that this short little 5 minute film and our screening of this short little 5 minute film just created a greater discussion about that, and more people who are involved in conservation and preservation of our green space in the city, but not just for running, uh,
Right.
which was
Right.
super
For
fun.
recreation.
And then one other
Yeah.
collaboration that came from that, we worked at the San Francisco Marathon, and we hired a local artist, Zach Leetoff Studios on Instagram. We had him. He does a lot of kind of graphic design, cartoonish type of pieces. He's actually working with Beta Breakers for this year doing their design.
Oh,
We had
cool.
him design his map of San Francisco, and we ended up
Nice.
releasing this map of his map of the trails of the city, and that was super fun
Wow.
working with him on that. But also
Yeah.
combining sport with film and like multiple aspects of creativeness, whether that be filmmaking or artwork and design. So that was super fun.
And now you're making a new film
Hmm.
currently.
Yeah,
Can you talk about it, or
yeah,
is it still
definitely.
under wraps?
Oh no,
Okay,
no,
tell
no.
us what you can tell
Yeah,
us about it. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, first off, when people go, the last film, Urban Oasis, when you go to watch it,
Yeah.
all of the listeners, put it on the biggest screen you have and turn the
Yeah.
sound up.
Yeah, I agree.
Turn the
I agree.
sound
You
up.
gotta you
Because,
gotta catch the bird doing the little
yeah,
shiver. It's
love
really
it.
cute.
I
No,
love it.
but it is true. But
Yeah,
jokes aside, it's true. You're right. Like it's a cinematic piece, and the audio. Yeah, the sound design on
sound
that. I was
design
gonna tell
is
you this.
absolutely
The
stellar.
sound design is next level.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who you had. Would probably Deucer boys, brilliant boys they
Dylan
are.
doing the recording, but Ryan doing the design. It was
So
absolutely
good. It
stunning.
was so good.
And one
Yeah.
funny little story and anecdote. Dylan had one of our friends, Kat Koo, uh, just running tiny circles around her for like 10 minutes one day just to record different aspects of footfall. And it was like faster feet,
Oh,
slower feet, stronger feet. It was so funny watching it. And I was doing a lot of behind the scenes footage just to really show funny videos. We
it's
captured
like
that. It
the
was really good.
behind the scenes stuff is so
Yeah.
funny on those.
So then with these same guys, so with
Right.
Ryan, with Tony, and with another editor, filmmaker, Nicole Amix, who's from Marin, I'm working on a film that kind of came into my mind when I started doing the Dipsy race, this famous local trail race, the second oldest race in the US after the Boston Marathon, and the oldest trail race in the US. It's been happening for over 120 years. Um, I wanted to make a film on youth participation in the Dipsy. The Dipsy is unique in that it's age and the start is age and gender
Yeah.
handicap. So like at
Yes.
8 a.m. you've the 80 and above men, 65 and above, 5 and above women, 8 and below kids start, and every minute for 25 minutes it'll off a new batch of runner to the 20 to 25-year-old men. 25
So
minutes.
cool.
Anyone
Yeah.
can win. It's hard. 80-year-old men, 67-year-old women, 8-year-old girls have all won it. I won it last year at 37 and or 36, but I was the first person in the 30s, male in the 30s, to win it in like 40 years. So it's
Wow.
super unique
Really?
that way, yeah. But
Wow.
it's really good for access to the sport for especially the young community because the age and gender, like back in the 60s and 70s, this sport was one of the first. This event was one of the first sports that acknowledged female participation in running. So it was kind of the platform for women to get into trail running.
That's so
So it's
great.
been
Yeah.
good for normalizing age and gender, but still very much like our sport, it's predominantly white people from wealthy, mid to wealthy backgrounds, and we feel like that doesn't reflect the Bay Area, because the Bay Area is a very culturally diverse and ethnically diverse region. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to follow 5 youth, or a group of young runners from 11 till 18, from different corners of the Bay Area, from different ethnicities or different socioeconomic groups, and follow their path to the race to show that, hey, you guys can do this race too. And like, it's been a really fun process so far. So we're following 5 kids, um, 3 from Marin County. Young Lily, 11 years of age, from Marin City. We've got Anthony, he is 14, he's from San Rafael. Andre, 15, from San Rafael. And then we have Daniel Saucedo, a 12-year-old from San Juan Batista, which is a farming community from south of Gilroy, about 2 hours south of here. And
Wow.
then we have Karina Arizon Lopez from Hayward, which is the East Bay, and she's like a senior, 18 years of age,
So
and she's
cool.
about to graduate and hopefully go to college. So we're following all these and their families, and we're interviewing them and following their path into the race. But then around that, we're also interviewing people who've been involved in the history of the event from all different backgrounds, whether it
Yeah.
be racers or volunteers or supporters, and we're kind of combining all of those stories. It's been a really fun process. The project is called Dipsy Generations, because we're trying to
Mm.
capture, like, the youngest person we've interviewed was actually, it was Andre's little brother, who's like 9. Actually, no, we interviewed 2 7-year-olds at an event we were at a few weeks ago as well. 2 twins who both did it when they were 5. And the
What?
oldest
When
person
they
we
were
got,
5?
yeah,
What's the
yeah,
youngest participant in the? Well, you're talking about
I,
the Dipsy. They did it when they were 5. That's the
yeah,
youngest.
yeah. This year
Jeez.
they increased the lowest age to 7. And Ryan's
Okay.
son Quinn is 5, and he was devastated. He's like, "I'm
Oh.
old enough to do this race. What's with that?"
Oh.
It's pretty funny, but you have your whole life
Sounds
to do it, Quinn.
so young.
Yeah. And the oldest person we
Wow.
interviewed was 102, Mary Lucille.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
She
these
did
are
the race in the
shocking me from
60s or
both
70s.
sides. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
It's pretty cool.
Oh wait. Okay, wait. What was their age when they did it? That was maybe that's
She
what I
did it
was.
as an adult, but she also
Yeah.
got her kids to do it, and she had her daughter, Marietta Boitano, do it as a 5-year-old
How old
illegally.
is the oldest participant in the Dipsy?
And the
Do you
oldest
know that?
participant is probably someone in their early 90s, late 80s.
Really?
Said people winning it in their 70s.
That's wild.
Funny, Marietta Boitano was 5 when she did it first, but her and her mom sneaked into the race in the 60s. She was 5. Her mom was, I guess, mid 30s, and they both wore hats and pretended they were men. And that happened for several years, and then in like 69 or 68, they started letting women do it. I could be wrong with the year. And then Marietta, when she was 10, she won the Dipsy as a 10-year-old. And then her older
Girl too.
brother, Mike, was like
Wow.
12. He won it the following year and the following year. So they won 3 years in a row.
Champions. Dipsy champions in their
Yeah.
house. Oh my
She's
goodness.
Marietta is still doing it. She's doing it this year. She's like in her
Wow.
early 60s maybe. But her mom is 101, going on 102, and she's
Oh
still like
wow.
sharp as anything, and had some really funny stories about the Dipsy.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Oh my gosh. Wait, okay, so when does this you're gonna shoot this June. So the Dipsy
So we're
happens in
shooting this
June.
June, and we're going to release the film closer to the end of the year with a little
Yeah.
tour down the
Okay.
bay, and then see what other festivals we can get onto.
Festival. Yeah, I
We're
figured.
sponsored by.
Okay.
We did a big. We're sponsored by the Trail Running Film Festival. Gave us a grant,
Oh yeah.
and North Face supported
Cool.
us as well. And then we, the people across the area, kind of contributed to a crowdfunding campaign to support the film and support the kids. So we'll do a load of screenings at the end of the year, but also, like, we're seeing this as like an archive of stories about this event and about this community. So we're going to release all of the full length interviews on YouTube and the Dipsy Generations YouTube channel.
Cool.
And then I'm working with the
Oh,
Mill Valley
cool.
Library. We're collaborating to create to expand on their archive of information on the Dipsy
Wow. Which is like positioned right literally
at
on
the
the
start
Dipsy
line.
Trail,
Yeah,
essentially at the start.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
pretty
library
cool.
is so beautiful. Okay, wow. Well, we will, yeah, anything that's available to share with people, we
Yeah.
can definitely link to all of
If you go
that.
subscribe to Dipsy Generations, we put up a short film about Daniel Saucedo, which is really cool. We shared that a
Yeah.
few weeks ago. That's like a 2 minute long piece, but we'll do one on each of the athletes, and we're also hosting a storytelling event in a few weeks where I was
Cool.
like, we're only at the capacity to interview so many people, but I'm like, there's so many stories about this event and about this community. How do
Yeah.
we capture them even better? So
Yeah, that's hard.
I organized a kind of mock style Dipsy storytelling night,
Nice.
kind of
Yeah.
inspired by events you put on.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
We're doing that on May 30th at the Mill Valley Library, and we're going to record. I've got like 25 submissions, and we're going to have to pick like 10 or 12 of them to get up and do a
Wow.
5 minute story about the race on the
Oh,
night. We'll
that's so
record that and
cool.
release it as well.
Whoa, I love that. That's going to be so fun. That's a great idea. Another good event structure, like kind of the storytelling sharing. Um, okay, in the interest of time, we have been talking for a while, and also I know this was like originally going to be just like a 15-minute debrief, and hilarious that we're not.
That was
That's
never going to
not the
happen.
direction we've gone. So I did want to ask you. So now, out of order, I'm going to ask you kind of the questions I ask everybody. But actually, I asked you these on the panel, so you already know
Mhm.
what's coming. Like
Yeah.
these are kind of the panel questions, right? And I think it's interesting because I'd like to, if you want to share with folks like your thought on the aha question of like, is it good, like, is it good or bad, we can please do that. But yeah, it's basically about like, what was your aha moment on climate, and you can take that in either direction. And I thought your like inner monologue on that was pretty interesting, if you want to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah, when you asked me that a few weeks ago, like I pained about the response to it because like I'm like, what direction do you go with that? Do you go like, is it your aha
Yeah.
moment that like, oh, this is the situation, or this is the situation we found ourselves in, and actually me finally realizing, or me realizing that climate change is a major issue and that we need to solve it ASAP, or is an aha moment like, aha? So it's like
This is it.
aha or aha. This
Yeah.
is what I could do to help um, create positive momentum in that space. So I guess two of those answer, or like I can go both directions on that. I
Sure.
will go both
Yeah.
directions. The first one was probably like 2017 into 2018, and this I'll come at this from two angles. That was the time when we had a lot of bad wildfires here in California. Is when we had the Camp Fire, when we had um, Paradise, where like 1,900 people
Mm.
killed with the fast moving fire in Paradise. We had a couple of pretty bad seasons in a row, and also when the fire season was expanding from like 3 months to like 8 months, we had like some February fires, January fires, through to fires that were starting as early as August, September, like June, July. Like the fire season traditionally just like the late summer, early autumn months was expanding to like 9 months. That was quite that like was quite overwhelming being here in San Francisco for that. Even though I was only impacted by the smoke, like our house, like I was never at risk for our home or anything like that. But then also through my sport, like we had a lot of races that were cancelled throughout that. The North Face 50 was a race in 2018 that had to be cancelled like the week before because we had two or
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks of like just non-stop smoke where you couldn't leave your house. And like none of us have air conditioning here in San Francisco, so like I woke up one of the mornings and there was just like my bathroom was just covered in soot from a fire that was happening like a 4 hour drive away. At
Yeah.
that same time, Ireland, which is a very wet place, you've been to Ireland, it's very wet,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
green. We had like an 8 or 10 week drought, which is unheard of in Ireland, like from April into May, which
This
should
was
be a wet time.
2018.
Every time in Ireland should be wet.
Yeah.
And like I
Yeah.
grew up in a dairy farm, and like we were having to use the feed that we had saved for the winter months. We had started having to use that like in the middle of the summer when
Hmm.
these cows should be out in like lush grass. That same time, our house got hit by a tornado in Ireland, which doesn't happen in Ireland. There was a tornado landed in my home area of Wexford and was on ground for 10 kilometers and actually went over one. The only building it hit was a cow shed that we had. Lifted the roof off the shed and landed out into the middle of a field of calves. Luckily, all the calves are okay. I was like, tornadoes don't happen in Ireland, and one just hit my
Mm.
farm.
Wow.
So those two things kind of happening around that like 2017, 2018, 2019 time made me like I was aware of climate change beforehand, but it was
Sure.
kind of really when it like came closer
Yeah.
to home. We started experiencing Ireland much more bigger swings of weather as well. Ireland should be a pretty mild weather place because of the North Atlantic drift, but as that starts to change, we're going to get bigger swings on the west coast
Yeah.
of Europe.
Interesting.
The positive aha moment about how I could of how I can be involved in it. All throughout my scientific career of molecular biology, I was always interested in doing outreach and did a lot of education outreach. I grew up in a family of teachers. My sister, my two sisters, and my mom are all teachers. So I really enjoyed kind of teaching other people about science. But also I was doing this storytelling and communication and art, I guess, around communities and about the outdoor spaces. And I started thinking about, oh, how can I've like all of these parallel skill sets that I would love to be able to merge them a little bit more. So I started thinking about my own career and like, should I go into a bit more like science communication? And this was more in like
Hmm.
2020, 2021 when the pandemic
Yeah.
happened. I was like, science is going to save the world and everyone's going to love
Yeah.
science. And then it went
Yeah.
completely the opposite direction because of ineffective and poor science communication, I guess.
Hmm.
So I started thinking about and researching organizations that were doing really effective science communication that I could learn from. And I've been familiar with Protect Our Winters for years. I know people who are involved in it, and like just seeing them where they have this alliance of athletes, of creatives, and of scientists all working together for to tell a kind of a shared story. That's something I like really appreciated, and I wanted to kind of learn from them. So I engaged with them a little bit more in 2023 to see if how I could be involved because I just wanted to kind of learn from them and help in any way I can. So that's kind of how I found my way into Protect Our Winters. Yeah, it would
So
have been
cool.
mid 2023. So I've been involved with them
Yeah.
for 2 years, and I've only been able to get. I still haven't figured out the story I want to tell yet
Yeah.
around climate space or climate action, like through film. We haven't figured that out yet. We've also been obviously preoccupied with this youth participation film. But
Yeah.
then getting to be involved in like events like the climate strides, it was kind of for me. It's been really uplifting because I'm like, these are things I can help out with, kind of to help people kind of share the story.
Yeah.
It's been really
Absolutely.
yeah positive for
And
me.
it's what we joked about on the panel too, where there's like I feel like many POW athlete or POW alliance members could be on any of the alliances, right? So there's like there's Science Alliance. Isn't there also a brand? There's a brand alliance, maybe, which I think is kind of folks that work in these
Well, where
companies,
the
but
climate
then
things are grows.
where
You
the
gotta
common things are is going to be a huge brand, obviously. Science Alliance, Creative Alliance, Athlete Alliance, and then in the Athlete Alliance, there's also like running
there's
alliance,
running,
climb,
there's fishing, there's
right? Like surf,
climbing,
maybe or
cycling,
paddle or water. Yeah,
snow, water.
yeah. So there's just so many. But I loved like, especially even on that panel specifically, I was like, all of these people could be on multiple ones, right? Like Christopher could absolutely be a Creative Alliance member, but he's also an Olympian. So
Yeah,
whoops, Christopher, sorry, you're going to be on the
yeah, yeah,
Athlete Alliance. But I love that there's such a crossover, and I think you can do it all. I mean, your science communication, like we need you. We need someone who can speak like you have a PhD. You're very knowledgeable about I know it's like I remember when we first started talking about this, you're like, I'm a cancer biologist, not a climate scientist. I'm like, yeah, but you can translate very complex concepts into distillable bite-sized pieces that people can actually understand and take in and process. And that's really unique and hard.
hmm
And I think that like having your so again, yeah, come over, join the Creative Alliance or whatever. Like you have the ability to tell those stories, and obviously you're doing that through filmmaking and whatnot too. So that could be, yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited to keep talking about all of these possibilities together. The
Well,
last question I wanted to ask, still
it's
being my
one
yeah, go
thing.
ahead, go ahead.
It's still inevitable as I'm getting older and slower. I'll have to transition out of the athlete alliance at some stage as well. Though I still have the dipsy, which I can
Oh,
still do well
yeah,
into my
the
age.
Dipsy. You can still win the Dipsy. I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I feel like here's the thing with trail running. I feel like every year I go to these. I don't even know if I'm keeping this in, but every year I go to these races, there's a slate of people, new people that I've never heard of,
Yeah,
and they're so fast.
yeah.
And I'm like, cool, that's the new fast
They
person.
can
And then
all
the
touch
next
their
year,
toes. They're fast.
yeah.
They don't wake up in the morning aching.
Right, those people.
Yeah,
Yep, we love
to be
them.
young
They're
again.
they're great. We wish them all the success in the world. Are you going? You're going to canyons this weekend. That's right. Okay,
Yes.
that's right. Okay. Um. Last question for you. I asked you this too the other night, but what is your favorite climate solution that is not your own? I mean, well, you could, yeah, take that as you want. Take that as you want too, because it doesn't have to be, it can be one you work on, of course, but a climate solution that's making you
Yeah.
excited.
I'll
And
talk about.
this is
Yeah.
obviously my moment of like uplifting us as we end the conversation. But is
Yeah.
there one that's making you excited?
Yeah. Definitely. I'm super excited about kind of the concept of rewilding. I'm
Yeah.
excited about it. Like at home in Ireland, there's a lot of push and a lot of fight back against it, but a lot of push
Hmm.
towards like kind of rewilding our outdoor spaces. But we have it a lot here in San Francisco. There's a couple of really good organizations who are doing like replanting of native plants, of native of flora around San Francisco. It happens a lot. Mount Sutro is just a hill that was featured in Urban Oasis, and
Yeah.
actually, funny enough, at the Patagonia event the other night, they sponsor three nonprofits every year, and one of them is Sutra
Oh,
Stewards,
yeah.
who is this
That's
organization
right.
that
Yeah.
is kind of trying to revive the hills here in San Francisco and like plant native trees, native flowers to try to attract and preserve the native fauna we have here in the city. Like there's the Mission Blue butterfly, which is predominantly just found in the peninsula of San Francisco, and like its area is receding, receding, receding. So people are trying to get back to expanding that again. I'm very passionate about that because, for many reasons, obviously, rewilding and getting more like protecting our boglands or protecting our forestry is going to only help with carbon
Yeah.
capture. Um, but also, I think getting people, especially rewilding in these urban spaces, it'll also help what I talked about with urban oasis, getting people to appreciate the wildness that is in their area. I really love
Yeah.
that. Um, how I've been involved in that myself. I've got to volunteer with or with Suture Stewards quite a lot, and it's such a fun experience to get out there and just get your hands dirty and do some work. And it's great core work for all your runners and athletes out there as well. But there are so many organizations, whether that be here in the Bay Area or in towns all across the country, who are doing efforts like this, whether it be trail building or
Yeah.
rewilding spaces or picking non-native plants and things like that. And also, I am doing rewilding in my back garden by
Oh,
completely ignoring two-thirds of it and just focusing on one little garden bed corner. Because the other thing is wild, and my landlord has come in and has pulled up all the weeds. I'm like, devastated afterwards because I'm like,
you're
you were
like, no,
attracting
that
all
was
the
my
pollinators,
rewilding
and
project.
I found some really cool animals in my backyard. I found this thing a few months ago, a legless lizard. I pull up there was a brick
Is
out there,
that
and I
not a
pull up the brick,
snake?
and I was like, this little tiny snake that was like this wide but chunky. And I took a photo of it, and it's a leg. It's actually a lizard. It's not a snake, and it's just its legs have kind of
Oh,
almost disappeared. And yeah, super cool. Well, we got wellness in
okay.
the
Look at
backyard.
that. See, this is what rewilding gives us in our
Yeah,
own backyards.
yeah. So that's
I
something
also,
I'm passionate
there's
about.
also like actual data on, maybe we talked about this too on the panel, I can't remember, but like there's data on people connecting with natural spaces and getting access to even green spaces in cities, and then like connecting that with feeling a willingness and want to protect nature, or take climate action or get involved in conservation. It doesn't have to be like in their specific backyard or in their city. It's just like there's actual studies that show that people that can, the more I should say it this way, the more folks we can get into those
Exactly.
spaces and feeling an ownership and a connection.
There's
Ownership's the
that.
wrong word, you know what I mean, like
Yeah, there's that, and
connection.
then there's
Yeah.
also with trees and urban spaces. When you've more trees and dense urban spaces, you've cooler. It's going to be a cooler
Mm-hmm.
environment for people
Yeah.
as their cities and their climate warms. There's been a lot of really good initiatives across the country and across the world to kind of like green these spaces. I love actually. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever been to Sacramento. It's the city of trees. They have like so many trees along every street, and it just makes you feel better when you're walking around that area. I was
Yeah.
actually only walking up towards my house, and there's an organization that I can't remember what they're called, but they plant trees along the streets in San Francisco, and they like a volunteer-led
Oh,
organization. And I saw
cool.
a team of 8 people with their yellow jackets and their shovels going down
Oh,
to plant some new trees further down our street, which is a really cool resource. But
so cool.
like for people, I think it's really great when you get the opportunity to kind of volunteer with these organizations because you kind of see
Yeah.
the effort other people are doing, but it's also super fun because you're generally doing it with a community. You're in the outdoors. You're
Yeah.
gaining a lot from it. So I urge you all
Totally.
to find opportunities to do that in your region, your city, in your town, or create the opportunity for other people
Or
to do that.
create them. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Patty, both for this conversation, but also for the amazing co-organization and planning and event design that you helped with for Climate Strides this past weekend. It was truly, I literally, I know I said this to you guys already, but like I'll say it to everybody. I could not have done this without you, without Britt, without the team behind this amazing event. And I mean that from like, yes, a physical perspective, but also like emotionally, it was so great to be like, oh, I have my friends here doing this with me. So
Yeah.
it was really fun, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much. We got such a great turnout.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool day. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Oh, it was an honor to be involved in it, and any opportunity I have to show people the green space in San Francisco, I've actually considered signing or like leading. I don't know, do Airbnb experiences or something like that of like bringing
Yeah.
people on running tours of San Francisco. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
that's my next career.
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I've
And then
thought
you
about
can
it.
just start to infuse like little climate. Doesn't have to be
Yeah,
overt,
yeah,
but just like
yeah,
infusing little like, and over there there's
yeah,
a
yeah,
certain type of plant
yeah.
that
So
yeah. That's
I
cool.
just love showing people these wild spaces we have here.
Yeah. Well, I know we're definitely at time and you have to hop off, I have to hop off. I'm so grateful for your time this week, this entire week. Thank you for talking today and for debriefing with me and joining the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much.